Hi guys, welcome to my channel, The Golden Cruiser. I'm Cindy, and today we're going to go back in time, take a cruise memory lane tour, and look at things that used to be on cruise ships that aren't there anymore. So if you're like me and you've been cruising a long time, you're probably going to remember some of these things, or maybe all of these things that I'm going to go over that used to be on cruise ships and are no longer on a cruise ship. So let's take a look at some of these items. So grab yourself a drink, maybe a snack, sit down and relax, and let's talk about cruising in the olden days. Number one thing you won't find anymore is hitting golf balls. Now, it used to be that you could go to the back of the ship and hit golf balls off the ship into the ocean. Now, this was considered a luxury back then, and people loved to get on board. This was in the early 80s and very early 90s that this still went on, until finally what seemed to be a glamorous thing to do became an environmental hazard, and so this had to stop. Thousands of golf balls were laying at the bottom of the ocean, slowly breaking down into ecoplastics, and it was very, very bad. So nowadays they just have the mini golf courses or the putting greens on the ship, or golf simulators that you can use. No more hitting golf balls off the ship. Number two, skeet shooting. Now, this was before my time. This was in the 70s and early 80s. Passengers could get a real gun and shoot skeet off the back of the cruise ship. They would throw the discs up in the air and they would literally shoot them off the ship. Well, it was a thrill of a lifetime for some, but this didn't last due to safety reasons, pollution, and the respect for ocean life. So you won't find skeet shooting anymore on a cruise ship. Number three, and I dearly remember these, midnight buffets with ice sculptures. These used to be an elaborate midnight buffet, not like the regular buffets you go to nowadays. They would set these out sometimes on the pool deck on big long tables, and you'd have these big ice sculptures carved, some 5-foot tall ones and smaller ones, all through this beautiful foods they had laid out with, carved vegetables, and it was just so elaborate and beautiful. And people just loved to go to that, to take some pictures with your camera and just tell people back home about the experience of the midnight buffet. Now, these slowly faded away because not that many people were really that hungry at midnight that they were eating all this food they put out there. And they soon discovered this was a waste of food that they were putting out in these elaborate buffets. And this just slowly faded away due to health regulations also, with the food just sitting out there. So it was something of the past. I'm sure if you're like me, you remember those. They were beautiful. They were elaborate, but they are no more. Number four was black tie formal nights. Now, I remember these. Now, formal night back in the day, depending how far back, used to be way back, tuxedos for men and women in beautiful ball gowns. Now, when I sailed, it was always on formal nights. My husband had to wear a suit and tie, and I would wear a long gown. I'll put a picture up here of us. I think this picture was from 1999 of us on the cruise ship. But we always had to pack his suit and tie and shirts and everything, and pack a dress for me. But nowadays, that's more lax on formal days. You don't find people dressing up as much. You still see it, but not as formal as it used to be. I rarely see men in suit and tie. Sometimes, usually older people might dress up. But nowadays it's more formal, people with their families and everything, and you just don't feel like dressing up. Maybe they dress up for work all the time and they just want to relax. So you won't see it as much now. It's not as strict now as it was back then when everybody did it and people seemed to enjoy doing it. But now it's not that formal. Number five, smoking. Smoking has changed. Up into the early 2000s, People could smoke on their cabin balconies. There were indoor smoking lounges scattered throughout the ships. But that changed with one incident. A serious fire on a cruise ship broke out, and the cause was found to be a cigarette that was thrown overboard off the balcony and landed on like another cruise balcony and caught the whole side of the ship on fire, with several cabins being burnt. And it was a terrible fire, the worst fire they had had so far at sea. It spread quickly through all the exterior cabins and everything. So nowadays, the cruise lines have thought of fireproof paint they use, strict smoking policies, sprinkler systems throughout the cruise, and also because of the secondhand smoke that they found out about can harm passengers too. Now they have designated smoking areas, usually outside, but on most cruise ships, passengers can still smoke in the casino if they're playing a game or something like that. And otherwise, you can't smoke on your cabin balconies anymore, just in the designated areas. Number 6, DVD filming. Now, boy, I remember this. They didn't have digital photo packages back there then. Crew member would be around the ship filming you on a big camera with the lights and everything. They would film the whole ship. So if you were at a dance party, you were getting filmed. If you were in the dining room, you were getting filmed, out on the pool deck, everywhere. It was a whole, if we were on a 7-day cruise, at the end of the cruise, they would have these videos for sale, DVD. Here's a picture of one of my DVDs I still have from way back in the day. And on there, it shows my husband and I dancing and I don't know, some other spots. I can't bring myself to look at it yet again since my husband passed away 2 years ago. So that kind of brings back good memories, but sad, So I didn't look at it, but here's one of them I pulled out, how it looked back then. You'd pay about $20 for this at the end of your cruise. You didn't really know if you were on it or not, but you could see when they were filming you. You knew when they were filming you. So we would buy it, get home and watch it and point out, there we are, And it was a wonderful souvenir, and it really cherished your whole week of cruising. People that you had met, because they were smaller ships back then, and you met a lot of people, and it was really cool to have that. Nowadays, they don't have that anymore, but that was something I really enjoyed. And number 7 is the elaborate ice and fruit carvings. You would get on the ship on embarkation day. The regular buffet would have these towering ice swans that were carved. Maybe you have a big melon that looks like a flower, or peacocks, sculptured flowers out of carrots and pineapples. It was just beautiful carvings that they would do, gorgeous sculptures and everything. They would do carving demonstrations on the ship too, a lot of ice carving demonstrations out of the pools. And they were all part of the magic back then of cruising, which made it very special. If you remember those days, you know what I'm talking about. Number 8 was towel animals every night. Now, it used to be that on all the cruises, you had a towel animal every night, usually no matter what cruise line it was. Nowadays, you don't get them as often. Now, I know Carnival sometimes, depending on the ship and the cruise, you may get one every night. But even it is said that Carnival has cut back also, because it just takes extra time for the crew to be doing these towel animals when they're really on a busy schedule. The ships are so crowded nowadays. And then it takes extra time for washing all the additional towels that they've folded up. So most cruise ships, you might not even get them at all anymore. You may get one if you request it. Carnival, probably the ship that you'd get the most on that you'd see. I know my last Princess cruise didn't see any until my son told him it was my birthday, and he made me a little bird towel animal. But it just depends on the cruise ship. But know that the reason they no longer do it is because the crew is already so overworked with all the passengers. They don't really have time to be folding up towel animals and on top of all their other jobs and the extra towels that need to be washed. Number 9 is plastic straws. They used to be your cocktail came with a curved, bendy straw, or you had a plastic stir stick. Well, because of the awareness of plastic pollution, it became known. The cruise industry shifted. Plastic ranks one of the top 10 items they pick up on coastal cleanups, which are very, very bad. So now you're more likely to have a paper straw. I know those get wet and they're just terrible and most people don't like them. It's better for the environment. You could bring your own straws. You know, they have little metal travel straws that you could bring with you. They come with a tiny little brush and you can clean them out. So if you don't like the paper straws, look into those travel straws. They're not plastic and you could take one of those with you. Number 10, the in-person muster drills. Now, I think I have a picture here of my husband and I kind of laughing in our life vests. This was before 2020. Everyone that sailed before this date would know that you had to go to in-person muster drill. You had to go to your cabin, get your life vest, put them on, then walk to your assigned muster station, which was usually out on a cruise deck. I remember lining up on these decks, crammed shoulder to shoulder with people, waiting for everyone to get there, and then they would go through this whole spiel. They would show you how the life vest worked. And, you know, it took quite a while, and you could be standing out there in the heat or the freezing cold, just wanting to get your cruise started. So nowadays, after COVID hit, they no longer do that. The muster drills are so much easy. You know, all you have to do is watch a little video that tells you what to do. Go to your muster station. They scan your room key, medallion, whatever ship you're on, and you're done. It's so easy now, and so many people don't want to go do it. Well, the ships are required to have this done. So if you don't do it, you're holding up the whole ship for everyone. The easiest thing to do is get on the ship. The first thing we do, we head to our muster station, we check in, we're done. You know, don't go to the bar, start drinking, and then forget to do it, and then they're hunting you down. They will find you. They'll come to your cabin. They might start calling your name over the intercom. It's very important. They have regulations, and this has to be done by every passenger. So make sure and check into your muster station. It's easy. It only takes a couple of minutes. Number 11, I remember this. I never did it, but I remember it. Topless sunbathing. Now, on the cruise ships we used to sail on the top deck would be an adult-only pool, and it was pretty much blocked out. No one could see around the railings or anything into it. It was blocked out, and it was a gated area, and you had to use your room card to get into it. And there would be topless bathing allowed in there. Of course, it was an adult-only area. But now that has all gone away. Things are different now. Things have changed. More family friendly now than they were back then. So no topless sunbathing anymore. Number 12, porthole cabins. And we had one of these once. It was a small porthole window, little round window. I think this was one of our first cruises when we weren't even really aware that the front of the ship went up and down so much. And my husband and I had a cabin, and my daughter and her girlfriend were in the cabin next to us, the very front of the ship. And these are old ships. I'm probably talking 1998 or something. We sailed, and we had this little cabin window that you could peek out of, But back then, they didn't have as many balcony cabins, and it was kind of a luxury just to have a window to look out of. And so they had a lot of these porthole windows. That way you got to see out instead of just being in an interior room with no window. But nowadays they have the big panoramic glass windows, or a lot more balconies nowadays than they ever had on the old cruise ships. So that's changed. You won't see porthole windows anymore. Maybe you'll still see them down on the ship, but they're not really used for passenger windows anymore. Number 13 is turn down service. Now, once you used to have turn down service twice a day. Now, some ships may still do this, or if you're in a suite or something, or on a luxury ship, Silver Seas, you may get this service. But most ships nowadays will clean your room once, usually in the morning, and that's it. It used to be that they would clean your room in the morning, bring you the fresh towels and everything, and then when you went out to dinner, when you came back, your room was all clean again. You had fresh towels. Your bed was turned down and pulled back. The lights were dimmed. You had a chocolate laying on your pillow, and it was very nice. Nowadays, you don't see these chocolates on the pillow unless maybe you are in a suite or something like that. But they stopped doing this because it cuts down on laundry service. And, the staff are so overworked right now that doing this twice a day makes it really hard on them also. But at least we get the room clean once a day. That's good. That's fine with me. But that is a luxury that's pretty much gone away. Sometimes a cruise ship will do it twice a day, sometimes not. And number 14 is what I just talked about, chocolate on your pillow. Chocolate was always on your pillow every night with that turned down and the lights dimmed. Every person in the cabin would have a little chocolate there they could eat. But due to costs and waste of people not eating the chocolate, they stopped doing the chocolate. Unless you're on a premium cruise line like Silver Seas, I think then you still get your chocolate. 15 is the daily paper planner. Now, this used to be all the time because there was no apps. There was no app to go on and check in into, or no app to look at what was happening daily, no app to purchase things on. You just had your daily paper planner. I still have some of those that I've saved. And it would be on your bed every night or under your door, slipped under your door for the next day's activities. And it would be kind of exciting to get that paper at night before you go to bed and look over what was happening the next day. And I would take a pen and I would circle the things we want to do, or get a highlighter and highlight the ones we want to do. But nowadays in the digital world, that is all on your app. Some cruise lines, you still get that paper planner along with it. Some of them you can request the paper planner if they don't give you one. It just depends on the individual cruise ship himself. I still like to see that paper planner. I know you can see it all online, but I find it easier to see it on the paper planner, and I would just highlight it and then go over to the app and put, which one we want to go to, because it does give you a reminder on the app to go to that activity when it gets ready to happen. So that's basically it. As a little bonus, what I remembered when we first started cruising, we would stay in an inside cabin when we first started cruising. I think that's probably what most people do. We were on a lower budget back then. But it didn't matter what type of room you had back then. You didn't care. You were just glad to be on board in that, on that cruise ship. The main dining room, you couldn't choose if you wanted to sit by yourself or where you wanted to sit. You were put at a table with other people. I mean, we always were. And you couldn't choose what time. You either had early seating or late seating. That was the two times. You couldn't say, I want to eat at 8 o'clock. I want to eat at 5:30. You couldn't just walk in and eat. You had to be early or late seating. And then you all went at the early seating or the late seating. And then you sat with the group of people you had for the entire time you were on the cruise. So say we were on there for a week. I remember one time we just sat with one other couple that was from Europe, and it was very nice to get to know them. One other time we had like 8 of us at one big table, and it was kind of nice to get to meet everyone and see where they're from, what countries and what ships they'd sailed. But you couldn't really choose and say, I want to sit by myself. We just want to sit together. You just had to go with the flow, and you did it. And you accepted it because that's how it happened, and then the crews would come around and they'd be filming you, while you're eating or taking your pictures, which they still do sometimes now. But that's how it used to be. It's no longer that. Now you can go eat whatever time you want to. Um, and now you can say, if you want to sit with yourself, what my son and granddaughter who I sail with now, we always get a table by ourselves to eat at. But we always pick the same time dining every night because we like to have the same waiter every night because that's really nice. They get to know you. And, they usually bring our drinks before we're going to sit down because they know what we want. And I really like that. I don't like just having a different waiter every night and not getting to know them. But times have changed. Of course they have. They've changed in everything. But that's a little view into the past of, I'm sure a lot of you remember these things or maybe some other things I forgot. It was a lot different back then. But that's it for now. That's our little trip down memory lane. So if you liked my video, please give it a thumbs up and please consider subscribing to my channel. I want to thank you all for stopping by today, and I hope to see you again real soon on the Golden Cruiser. Bye for now.